500 company says it will not move ahead with plans to build a natural gas pipeline from western North Dakota's oil patch to the eastern part of the state. WBI Energy is a unit of Bismarck-based MDU Resources Group. The company says the project is not viable due to regulatory uncertainty, limited in-state demand, and rising construction, labor, and land acquisition costs. They're making some progress in the northern Red River Valley. National Guard Black Hawk helicopters and personnel continue sandbagging. They're trying to protect Borbanis Dam, that's about 20 miles west of Cavalier. The dam on the Tongue River has been eroding from powerful floodwaters. The Pembina County Water Resource District reports the dam stabilized overnight in areas that had been sandbagged. Those Black Hawks dropped about 161-ton sandbags on the dam yesterday. The remaining Tongue River dams are being monitored closely as the temperature warms and the remaining snow from recent storms melts. Partly sunny, right around 60 for the high this afternoon. Partly cloudy overnight and 40. Tomorrow, a partly sunny day, 66. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly cloudy now. It's 58. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
All right, let's have a chat because I need somebody to explain it to me as to the reckless behavior. I just heard a couple of items at the top of the news, whether it was CBS National News or KFGO's local news, reckless behavior on the rise. Whether it's speeding here, sort of a motorcyclist going 90 miles an hour, but it's on the increase nationally, nowhere more quickly than right here in North Dakota. But also nationally, in fact, over in Hollywood, in the Hollywood Bowl, Dave Chappelle, comedic, I say genius. I enjoy Dave Chappelle's act. I know not everybody does. I think he's great when he's up on that stage. But it wasn't just him on the stage because yet a guy charged him and tried is the key word, to tackle him during his live performance. Didn't go so well for the guy. If you've watched Dave Chappelle back from the movie era, whether it's Robin Hood Men in Tights through the Chappelle Show to where he is now, the guy has put on some muscle mass. He's accumulated a little bit of the muscle mass. So this guy comes up and tries to tackle him. He just simply, lowers his own shoulder. And I heard CBS News say, then security drug him off stage. If you've seen anything online, they didn't just simply drag him off stage and say, okay, go home, young lad. Guy ended up getting worked substantially. I saw a video of him getting loaded up into an ambulance out back, and I don't think his arm was straight.
Yeah, that right arm was dangling precariously.
It's your elbows bend one way. And it was not that one way for that individual. Now, I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm just saying the guy probably had it coming for doing this stupid stunt. And the fact that you have that, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, you've got protesters gluing their hands to the courts in Minnesota. You've got people on planes shouting, abusing, attacking, assaulting flight attendants. You've seen videos of people calling cops on neighbors just for simply walking through a park or being at a diner. What has triggered everybody to be in this state of mind is the question. I mean, I know that we just went through collective trauma over the last 2+ years of a pandemic that really changed a lot of things. Work habits, what we're able to do, what we were refused to do, all of that, I get that. But do you think that's all it's been? I mean, for you, I want you to give me your reason as to why There is so much stupid behavior that is out there. I mean, was it always there and we just see it more because it's on social media now? I mean, everybody's got their own camera. Everybody's got their own recorder right in the palm of your hands. So maybe it's just that we have easier access to it and we see it more. Or is it the fact that because everyone's got the camera, you got these wise guys and gals out there that says, well, look, I can go viral if I go and I try to tackle Dave Chappelle while he's giving his comedic stand-up in front of thousands upon thousands of people. In fact, I think it was getting recorded for Netflix. I don't know if this is his next Netflix special coming up, but I mean, is it that? Is it the frustration, the depression from this last pandemic? Is it what is it that has caused all this? I mean, and you can go further and further back. I mean, when we talk about, Teacher Appreciation Day was yesterday. And I hope you took a moment to thank those teachers. But you hear about some of the behavior that's happening in the classroom and how their job has become more stressful because it's not only about teaching a curriculum, it's also about, providing, I guess, discipline in ways because of you've got more disruptions in the classroom now. And you've seen it at sporting events when you have to have a sign outside of a baseball diamond reminding parents that it's a T-ball game and to be respectful of the players and the coaches and the umps. And that's the parents. I mean, hell, we just saw, what was it, in Detroit Lakes, where some guy came down on a basketball court, put his hands on a ref. What is this? What's driving this? 35270. That's the Laney's, or the I Consultants from North Dakota Text Club. Call me on the Laney studio line at 237-5948. Something had to get this ball rolling here. I think in the last couple of years maybe accelerated, but I think she was already on the move before, and it's just getting dumber and dumber. It seems as though week after week you have the next thing, and I don't know, maybe people are trying to outdo what happened the week before to captivate an audience and just push that bar a little bit further. Give me your reason. I'll be an open mind about that. I just gave you the numbers. We'll take any and all in the next 15 or so odd minutes, because then we're going to be heading down to St. Paul. Bill Warner, our Capitol correspondent, will get us all the latest down there about what's going on in Minnesota politics. Before we get you some of these messages, though, we got to get you a message from the emergency broadcast system. This is just a test. Again, this is only a test. Well, happy to announce that we passed our test for the monthly EAS. Trigger that. Good job. Eric Johnson fired that one off, and he did it just A+. That's
Is it funny that
work.
you and I both look at the TVs in studio to see if it goes out over those?
Yeah. I say, look what you did. So all of you that were watching TV but had the radio on, that was Eric Johnson's doing. You can fault him if he disrupted. Is there a soap opera still going on at 2 p.m, or are those all wrapped up by 1:30?
That or game shows. Let's Make a Deal. I think that's an afternoon game show that's on.
If he just disrupted giving that final answer because of that EAS, blame him and our monthly testing requirements. I'd ask, why are we so ornery? Why are we losing our minds? Guy goes up and tries to tackle Dave Chappelle. It backfired on him. I mean, they took him in an ambulance because the bodyguards took him out, but I think there was 10 people waiting for him back behind stage. But that, you've got parents at sporting events. I mean, we've heard about students in classrooms. You've seen the videos. I mean, you can have somebody walking through a park bird watching, and all of a sudden have somebody upset and call the cops. You've seen the videos of people assaulting flight attendants. What started it is my question for you. I'm going to go to the text club. That's the Act Consultants of North Dakota text club at 35270. Tyler, I think it's earworms. I read that. What was the movie? Roddy Piper was in it. And I think I've thrown this out. I can never remember, but he has the glasses, and he can put the glasses on. He can see, what are they, aliens? I don't remember. But I know there's a great line in there about chewing bubble gum and how he runs out a lot of bubble gum, so that leaves him one less thing to do. What's the name of that movie? 35270. Them? I can't. Somebody knows. You can help me out. 35. You guys already told you the number. Tyler, I don't understand why people feel so entitled, but I hope this gives a message that you can't do these things whether you're a celebrity or not. The entitlement factor, sure. I'm going to throw that in there. I mean, it seems like that has been a growing feature, growing characteristic. That, well, I got to get mine, or I've deserved this, so I'm going to go take it. Whether it's 15 minutes of fame, well, geez, I need to get my 15 minutes, so I'm going to go up and try to tackle Dave Chappelle, or whatever you have. It seems to have been snowballing. Like I say, I don't know if it's because of social media, meaning that people are trying to now go viral, or if we're seeing it, then that must just mean because we're seeing more of it that it's more acceptable. Perhaps it's both. More messages in. Tyler, two reasons for the aggressiveness: Trump and the COVID. Look at everything he got away with. And I acknowledge the COVID thing as far as the factor being of how disruptive that was. For everything, commerce, education, health, the sheer uncertainty, the fact that everybody became a doctor overnight. The Trump factor to this, where that has legs, is the way of which he was able to talk about women, talk about people with disabilities, to talk about roughing up people in the crowd, and that became accepted. He did all of that and more, and got elected to the highest office in the entire country. So again, that whole, what's acceptable behavior, right? And if you're screaming at that, then explain to me how that didn't. Because if you voted for it and you said, hey, that seems to me that you just brushed past it and said, well, this is acceptable for someone of that stature to do. Somebody's sending in the bubblegum quote. Yes, but what movie is it from? That's what come here. Now tell me what movie that is from. I'm glad we still had that audio from.
I knew I had loaded it in at one point, and I was just trying to find what I labeled it as.
Probably just got us in trouble because we're being too aggressive on the radio with the terminology here on a midday show. Tyler, without doubt, lack of parenting and discipline at home and teachers not being able to discipline at school. The discipline factor gets thrown out a lot. I'm not discounting it. I mean, I'm not. But I think what is acceptable discipline, right? I mean, I know what discipline was before my time. because we heard. Everybody, if you're thinking right now, you got that teacher to where, that teacher that basically could have put his finger into your chest and lift you up the wall, right? Out in the hallway because you were being stupid in class. That was not taking place when I was in school. But I know, and you talk about yardsticks, right? I mean, all those things that were used as discipline, right? I don't think those are acceptable anymore. I don't think that needs to be physical. But I think the thing that is separated between the two, this is just a pure observation from myself, whom does not have a child. But I know that when I got disciplined in school, whether it was detention or a good old-fashioned talking to, there was a phone call between that moment and when I got home from school. And sometimes you would hoping that maybe you could get to the voicemail or the answering machine, I guess is what it was back then. People still have all those, the one that have the red blinking dot, those that have those little tape in. But you would hope that you could get home and just try to save yourself. Because you know what? If you did it in school and you had to get disciplined there, chances are you deserved it and you were going to get disciplined back at home. And you deserved it. I know I did. But that gap between that discipline at school and then you getting home, I think has not held steady. I think now, from what I hear from my teaching friends or from my friends and family that coach, is that routinely parents are taking just automatically the side of their child. And so, I mean, if it's not going to be reinforced that, hey, this behavior is not acceptable at school, it's not acceptable with our family name, then, okay, well, that learning moment, if it was warranted, it's kind of lost. So that's where I come in when people always throw out the discipline. That's my take on it. Not that, boy, just got to, you know what, get the belt out. I don't think it's getting back to that. It's just having that consistency that if, in fact, you are wrong there and the authority's telling you wrong, then, boy, you better listen. 35270. Tyler, from a psychology instructor, thank you. In a society where aggression is encouraged, the yelling doesn't help. That's coming in as well. I think that's probably perhaps a direct response to my whole discipline monologue there. Tyler, They Live is the movie. Thank you. Could not remember, but I appreciate it. I got a lot of those in with Roddy Piper. I don't know that I've ever watched a full movie through. I know there's a great fight scene in it, plus that heck of a line that we just played for you. There's a lot of other messages in. I'm going to get back to those, but here's what's coming up. We got to get you caught up with KFGO News. Rusty Hover says he's going to get us the latest when it comes to planting conditions. Well, you already know for the most part, it's wet and it's cold, but he'll get the latest from parts of this region. Bill Werner, our Capitol correspondent down in St. Paul, with the Supreme Court leak of a draft opinion that would throw Roe versus Wade back to states. Minnesota, they're in session right now. Are they going to take this up? Has he heard anything in the Capitol? We already know what happens in North Dakota. That conversation and more coming up right after this. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked into KFGO Fargo.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Linex of Fargo. This is Linex country, home of the adventurous. Find them at 265 Main Avenue in West Fargo.
Fargo-Moorhead, we have a mostly cloudy sky. It is 59 degrees. I'm Paul Juergens. We expect right around 60 this afternoon. Fargo police are at the Islamic Center on 28th Street South, that is in the 600 block, investigating what one law enforcement source says is a suspicious package. The original call came in to Fargo Fire just after noon. That was considered a hazmat investigation, but again, police are at the Islamic Center at 601 28th Street South in Fargo. KFGO also has reporters in that general vicinity and will collect more information as it becomes available. There is more Minnesota reaction to the leaked U.S. Supreme Court ruling that would overturn a woman's right to abortion.
Sarah Stace is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood North Central States.
So our country may be, for the first time in a long, long time, significantly eliminating access to reproductive health care. People born today in this country will likely have fewer rights and opportunities to pursue their own lives than people in my generation.
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, abortion access is still protected in Minnesota for now, based on a state Supreme Court ruling in 1995.
That's reporter Steve Simpson. The judge overseeing the federal civil rights cases of 4 former Minneapolis police officers in the killing of George Floyd has accepted the terms of Derek Chauvin's plea agreement and will sentence him to 20 to 25 years in prison. Chauvin pleaded guilty in December to violating George Floyd's civil rights. The former officer admitted he kept his knee on Floyd's neck, resulting in the death. 59, this is KFGO News. '59, this is KFGO News. Investigators from the FAA are in Mankato, Minnesota, to determine why a small plane crashed, injuring the pilot. It happened at the Mankato Regional Airport last night. The pilot was the only person on board when the plane crashed during a landing attempt. The extent of the pilot's injuries has not been released. A man previously involved in a pursuit from law enforcement in southwestern Stutzman County, North Dakota, has been found dead. He was found dead last Friday after he'd been reported missing. The body of 36-year-old Jesse Leppert was found in the area of the original pursuit, according to the sheriff's office. The State Bureau of Criminal Investigation is looking into the cause of his death. Leppert did not have a permanent address, was known to stay with people in the Jamestown area. Officers tried to stop him for a traffic violation on April 24th in Eldridge when he fled, leading them on a car pursuit that ended at a farmyard southwest of the town. He then ran off into trees and fields surrounding the farm. Officers searched but couldn't locate him then. 5 days later, the female passenger from the initial stop later reported Leppert missing. A subsequent search of the farmyard was conducted by the sheriff's office, where the body was found. The state of North Dakota and the federal government have filed a lawsuit over a large oil spill that contaminated the Little Missouri River and a tributary in 2016. The federal lawsuit against Belle Fourche Pipeline seeks civil penalties and nearly $100,000 in reimbursement for the Department of Environmental Quality's work in responding to the 600,000-gallon oil spill. Near 60 hours high this afternoon, Fargo-Moorhead, about 40 overnight, partly cloudy. And then tomorrow, partly sunny, 66. We look for about 70 Friday, partly sunny. 59, mostly cloudy. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Rusty Alverson's in the KFGO studio, and boy, it was pleasant out over my lunch period.
Yeah, very nice
Drove
outside.
up north a little bit, but you know what? There's not a whole lot of activity because of everything that's been going on. Rain, cold.
Yep.
If I'm wanting to get out in the field, I am frustrated right now.
Yeah, indeed. For the Red River Valley, Devil's Lake Basin, many of those areas up into northeastern North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, even in northeastern South Dakota, delays.
Yeah.
Wet, cold soils, and Yeah, could use a good window of opportunity to plant. Now, some of the recent moisture, Tyler, that's been really good for winter wheat, especially in South Dakota. And got on the phone today with Reed Christofferson. He's based in Pierre, executive director of the South Dakota Wheat Commission. And he says the recent precip will likely be reflected in next week's crop report.
Strong moisture across much of the state, up to 4 inches in some portions of the winter wheat belt in southern South Dakota. Frost is out. That moisture went in the ground. It's getting put to work. I've actually heard one producer go so far as to say it may be the best looking winter wheat he's ever had. So a lot of things that can still happen, but this moisture, I think, is going to change our winter wheat condition significantly.
Yeah, the latest report that came out on Monday, Tyler, winter wheat conditions in South Dakota, 51% fair, 24% good, 1% excellent. And again, Reed thinks those numbers could creep up again in next week's update. But on the flip side of that coin, spring wheat producers, planting progress lagging behind the 5-year average.
Yeah, I heard some of those numbers from you and Sarah yesterday when we were thinking about the 5-year average and where we're at compared to that. Frustration is the best way I could just put it. I'd be like, come on, can we just get some sun? Can we get some warmth? I know we needed the moisture, but could it come maybe just a little bit later on?
Yeah. But we can talk a little bit more about North Dakota, Devil's Lake area, made a call up to there, and visit about that next hour.
Sounds good. I'll save that chair for you. Rusty Offer said if you can't wait for that next hour, KFGO.com, just click on that agriculture tab to learn more from him and Sarah Heinrich. CBS National News on the way. Bill Warner. Let's see what's going on down in St. Paul right after this. Legislative session continues to roll on. Their time is of the essence. In fact, I know that deadline is going to be coming up here in just about 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time. But to give us all the latest, our Capitol correspondent and friend of the show, Bill Warner, joins us right now. Bill, how are
Tyler.
you?
I'm good. You know that old James Gang song, "Sleep all day, fight all night." I think we're fighting all day and fighting all night at the legislature now. We're to that phase.
Tensions are high as we try to wrap up and get things done in a timely fashion.
For
So
sure.
the warning was already issued from the governor saying, hey, look, no special session. I know we've touched on, well, what does that really mean? But there is a not an official decision, but a draft of a decision that came out and really caught the attention of
Leak.
the leak.
Yeah.
The caught the attention of the nation all day yesterday. We're talking about it here. And Bill, just to give you a little insight. Do you know that I'm on the North Dakota side? I could throw a rock and have it land on the Minnesota side here. So we got this border. And in North Dakota, the legislative session that meets biannually, they have a law that triggers, meaning that if in fact that leak, that draft becomes the decision that comes down, and X amount of days, North Dakota outlaws and bans abortion. Now, in Fargo here where I'm sitting, there is a woman's clinic that does provide that service, and there's always protests out there to the point where there's needed to be escorts for people and patients to go in. You know, they're looking at this, and I do believe that they've already kind of sent the signal out there that if this does become the decision of the Supreme Court, they're going to go over to Moorhead on the Minnesota side of the river. You're on St. Paul as legislators are still there. I'm curious. In fact, Bill, I'll come back to you in just a moment. We've got some news coming on right now, and I got to pull Paul Jurgens in. Jurgen, I know you were talking just a minute ago. What's going on?
There was a call to the Islamic Center in South Fargo, just really west of our KFGO studios. Earlier this morning, late, I guess it was around a little afternoon, 12:15 or so, came into the fire department as a hazmat investigation. And police have been on scene now. They're starting to clear the scene, according to KFGO reporters over there. I was told just ahead of news at 2:30 by a law enforcement source that they were checking a suspicious package. But now they are opening the streets up in that general vicinity, and people are asked to stay out of the parking lot now. But that's what the call was initially, hazmat investigation, hazardous material. Mm-hmm. And then we had a law enforcement source that told us that it was a suspicious package. Whatever it is, it appears to be over, though, and we'll have more information coming up.
Very good. Hey, I appreciate that update. I know people were starting to ask questions right away, Jorgie, there. So.
Hi, Bill.
Oh, I had him on hold,
Okay,
sorry.
well,
Bill, I still got Jorgie with you.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah. Hey, Paul. We'll watch that one on the network too and see how that turns out. Thanks for that heads up.
We'll let you know.
All right.
Okay.
I'll let Paul Jurgens get back to the KFGO News Center. Bill, I got you in the KFGO studio, which, by the way, is sponsored by Gunderson's. I want to thank them for sponsoring that. But, yeah, we just got word of that development about 13 minutes ago. So having that update, appreciate your patience there, Bill.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got to do that. Yep.
Down in St. Paul, though, I was saying the uniqueness of where you're at is your lawmakers are in session as this draft comes out. Are you hearing any rumbling that, well, this is our opportunity if we want to try anything at the state level in Minnesota, we can follow along what North Dakota and South Dakota did, or is it pretty quiet out there on this front?
Yeah, it's a real interesting dynamic here because, no, we do not have a trigger law as North Dakota does. And the chances of anything happening on this legislative session would be virtually nil because even if the Republicans were to try it in the Minnesota Senate, the chamber they control, and we don't have any indication that anybody's thinking about that. Even if they were to try it, there's no way it would clear the Democratic-controlled Minnesota House of Representatives. There's no way that Democratic Governor Tim Walz, would sign it. So that's not really where the focus is. The focus is, and I think that this would, I dare say, would probably be true in a lot of states where that don't have trigger laws as North Dakota does, that the focus is really going to be on the fall election. In Minnesota, specifically, the whole legislature is up for re-election. We have a governor's race coming up, so you can see what the parties want to do. The Republicans who have control of the Minnesota Senate currently, they want to retain that. They want to grab control of the Minnesota House of Representatives. They want to win the governor's office. Democrats, the converse of that, want to retain the governor's office, retain their majority in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and grab a majority in the Minnesota Senate. And so then, either side would have carte blanche. Now, short of that, it's kind of, deadlock mode or stalemate mode or whatever you want to call it, as it has been on a number of issues already. But, Tyler, the plea to the voters is going to be, and you always hear, hey, this is the most important election ever, right? Okay? Our last presidential probably was that, regardless of which side you're on. I think you could put it in that category. This next election, in terms of the abortion issue in Minnesota, certainly, and in other states as well that don't have trigger laws or similar, is going to be that very, very important election, because it's going to determine, hey, have you got Republican control total, have you got Democratic control total, with the implications for the abortion issue, obviously, and what would happen on that, or do you have divided government? Does it continue in some way, shape, or form as it is now? And so that's why it's such an important thing.
Well, and as you're just pointing out, why there's not any discussion right now, because the reality is that divided government. So if, in fact, that gets maintained, there's your answer as to what Minnesota voters want as well. And Governor Walz is quick to come out and say, not on my watch. Senator Tina Smith said something I can't repeat on this family-friendly show. I know that Amy Klobuchar as well has come out, obviously, and no surprise, saying, hey, we got to get some federal stuff. But if, in fact, this decision's here, because federally you just don't have the votes unless filibuster gets removed, Minnesota is one of those states that the sheer politics of this, my gut tells me it favors Walz's reelection, but I don't know, Bill.
Yeah, it's really tough to say. A lot of it depends on what happens at the Republican State Convention, which is coming up the weekend after next. We'll be down there reporting on that. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be a wild one, I think, by any standards. It's got so many folks in the race. The one thing too, Tyler, that I want to mention to folks as well, and this is something that has been brought up, is that even if the United States Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, you have a Minnesota case that's kind of runs parallel to that. It's called Doe versus Gomez, which basically says, and this is a Minnesota Supreme Court decision from the 1990s, it says the state can pay for abortions for low-income women. So the pro-life people say, well, we first have to get by that. In other words, that has to be overturned, and then we can do something in terms of a total ban on abortion. The pro-choice forces say, well, that's sort of true, but to keep in mind also that Republicans are going to, since Minnesota Supreme Court justices are elected, and they're elected on an off-shifted schedule, okay, not all at once, but since they're elected, there's going to be emphasis there on turning over some of those Supreme Court seats, flipping those to conservative justices. And also, that aside, what the pro-choice forces say is keep in mind, too, that if you have a Republican and Democrat, Republican-controlled Minnesota legislature, House and Senate, that they could always put forward a constitutional amendment that would ban abortion in Minnesota, put it on the ballot. They don't need to have anything. They have to sign it. And off you go. If the voters approve that, then it would be a ban in the Constitution. So, there's a lot of spin going on both sides of this. And, voters, I think, regardless of your point of view, okay, I'm not advocating one way or the other, certainly. That's not my job. But I think it behooves voters to be informed on all the dynamic here and exactly what's going on and how potentially important this vote could be in deciding whatever point of view that a particular voter holds. They want to go to the ballot box and advocate that point of view through their vote. They need to realize what the effects of that are going to be.
A lot of dynamics on your side of the river is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
On the North Dakota side, I think it was less than, it must have been about 8 years ago. That there was a measure out there that North Dakotans did overwhelmingly reject. So I'm not trying to compare the two, but I mean, if North Dakota is going to take that stance, I could about imagine in my own mind where Minnesota does go. I
think that's a long shot, probably getting a constitutional amendment like that approved. But it's in the calculus anyway.
Bill, just before I let you go, I know there's other things. You've got tax bills. You also got education funding. Do you have any updates on either of those before I get us a weather update?
Yeah, Minnesota House just passed its tax bill. It doesn't provide those large permanent tax cuts that the Republicans want. So the battle lines are drawn, and we're about 2.5 weeks to the end of the legislative session, and we're going to see how much or how some people say how little they end up doing this legislative session.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad that you're able to break it all down for us, my friend. I'm going to let you go, and we'll catch up again next Wednesday. How's that sound?
Sounds good. I have more to report then, you can be sure.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt. Bill, you take care. Always good to catch up.
You too, Tyler.
All right. Bill Werner, Capital Correspondent, Minnesota News Network. He's down in St. Paul. Messages pouring in about a variety of things. First, the conversation about how we got so aggressive with each other and how you just find people storming stages and trying to tackle comedians. And, of course, comments about what Bill just told us on the Minnesota side of the river. I'll come back to all that right after this KFGO weather update from Too Tall Tom Schmansky. Wrap up the first hour of Afternoons Live right after this. attention to the man behind the curtain, because the person behind that curtain was Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito and his opinion and the draft that came out and the substance of it. We probably will never know who leaked it. And for the overwhelming majority of people out there, they don't care. They do care about the decision. And if this is the decision that is going to be provided, there's going to be a lot of passionate, emotional, heightened rhetoric going into this midterm election. There's three things that just got flipped on its head with this leak coming out. One, the credibility of the court itself. And I think for a lot of people, the credibility of the court has been taking a nosedive for quite some time. Variety of reasons as far as decisions. Whether it was on Obamacare, there's a lot of people on the right side saying, well, geez, how could you uphold this? It was unconstitutional. We all knew that. You had Citizens United. You had the left upset still to this day saying, how could you allow all this money going into this? And now you've got this. I mean, there is a lot of in the decision-making of this, and quite frankly, the appointments and how they've come to be and the circus around that. So you've got the credibility of the court. You've got the politics of it in the midterm election, what that might mean all across the board, from your legislature through your governor, all the way to your federal races. And then you've got the reproductive side of this, health, all of that. All of it just became flipped upside down on Monday night, Tuesday. And if you're people out there saying they know how this is going to impact anything, they don't. But certainly there's a lot of opinions going on it. We share it, whether it's mine or yours, right here. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. CBS National News. We'll check back into Paul Jurgens. He'll get you the latest on what is happening over at the Islamic Center. It does sound like that thing has settled down, that people are able to move around. Also, Chris Atterbury, the studio host here, Minnesota Twins. We're talking Twins, brought to you by Atlantics and Jiffy Lube. We'll do that, and I'm coming back to all these messages the whole rest of the way after that. You got a locked into KFGO Fargo. Have a conversation. We're ranking them later on. You hear this, you have to scroll in your mind. Which one? We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but it is Star Wars Day, May the 4th. It's a special day for many of us geeks out there. Grew up on Star Wars. But if you are nerding out like the rest of us are in the KFGO building, when you watch the Kenobi trailer today that's coming out in like 2 weeks' time, boom. Excited. Tense. Looks great.
A lot of the original, the actors from the prequel trilogy in it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say you've got family cred because of all of my social medias, I think your brother is the most excited about Star Wars Day.
You have no idea. You don't have a clue. Now, it's also someone else's birthday today, a significant other of mine. So I don't know if I've ruined the Star Wars Day for her. Happy birthday, by the way, dear. Because now it bumps up, right? I assure you that I'm more excited for one over the other.
But we'll leave which one it is.
It's in all your mind, all of you listeners out there, you try to piece it together while you listen to KFGO News. Chris Atterbury, studio host of your Minnesota Twins. That's next.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, a partly sunny sky, 59. I'm Paul Jerkins. Fargo Police and Fire responded to the Islamic Center at 601 28th Street South shortly after noon today, with the initial report describing the call as a hazardous materials investigation. Shortly after 2:30, streets in the general vicinity were reopened and only access to the center's parking lot was restricted. A law enforcement source said the investigation surrounded a suspicious package. A city spokesman later confirmed the source report, saying a person was acting suspiciously and left a backpack outside the building and left. A police canine responded and alerted that more investigation was warranted. The Red River Regional Bomb Squad determined that the backpack did not contain any explosive materials. A ticking time bomb is how one Rose Creek resident, South Fargo, describes the rising trend of extreme speeding and racing on city streets. He says it's only a matter of time before there's a crash, unless the city does more to address it. Police Chief Dave Zabolski agrees, but says his officers are limited in what they can do in terms of apprehending speeding and fleeing vehicles, and that new laws need to be put in place. Zabolski says his department started ramping up enforcement in October. That is when City Commissioner Arlette Preston says complaints also reached a fever pitch, but not enough has been done.
I was getting a lot of emails and a lot of calls, and they were getting a little bit more frustrated. I brought it up on the City Commission agenda and have been having conversations with staff. And I don't know if it's related to just a lack of solutions or if it was just that the urgency didn't seem to be there.
Preston says she hopes a listening session that she organized at City Hall for tomorrow evening will be a chance to amplify city concerns, citizen concerns, and begin additional city actions. Tomorrow night's Town Hall from 5:30 to 7 is open to the public. It'll also be broadcast live on Fargo TV 56 and the city's social media channels. A subsidiary of North Dakota's only Fortune 500 company says it won't move ahead with plans to build a natural gas pipeline from western North Dakota's oil patch to the eastern part of the state. WBI Energy is a unit of Bismarck-based MDU Resources Group. The company says the project is not viable due to regulatory concern, limited in-state demand, and rising construction, labor, and land acquisition costs. Fargo-Moorhead near 60 this afternoon. We are at 58 now with a partly sunny sky. It'll be near 40 overnight and partly cloudy, and then 66 tomorrow, a partly sunny day. Again, 58. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
You know, the Cars is one of those bands that you just kind of, it's the Cars. I know of one person that gets excited when they hear the Cars. It's a friend's mother. She, I think, was a Cars fan. The only one in the entire world. I mean, Cars, they've got good songs, but no one's jumping up and down for the Cars, are they? I don't know. If you are, by all means, get a hold of me at 35270. You're trying to talk and your mic's not on.
With how popular.
Are you new?
New here. I must have turned your mic on twice.
Appreciate that.
The old no look is catches us over on this side once in a while. Thinking, I mean, there's got to be people that love the Cars, right? They've been around for 30, 40 years.
They just kind of linger, though. They're just kind of there. I mean, it's the Cars. Did they get inducted into the Hall of Fame, though?
Probably.
We're going to be talking about those rock and roll Hall of Fame inductees in a little bit. Chris Atterbury, the studio host here, Minnesota Twins. He'll be calling us back in a little bit here. He's busy. I don't know if we always catch him when he's in the damn elevator or what. He's at Target Field. He's going to be taking over these airwaves at 5:30, getting ready for Twins at Baltimore. First pitch at 6:10, I'm going to assume. Jiffy Lube, thank you. Linux of Fargo-Moorhead, thank you. You can get more done at Jiffy Lube with their 3 convenient area locations. And, of course, the Linux for truck accessories and so much more. You can go over to Maine in West Fargo and find out all of how you can pimp your ride with Linux. I better not use that. They might not want that. That was a dumb show on MTV, but that's a whole other conversation we're not going to have right now. The Twins, if you haven't been following along, you've been missing out. I hope you've been listening to them right here because it has been good. It has been fun. I mean, they've hit their stride. Are they 11? They're 11 of their last 12 on the win side here. Now, it's been done in a variety of ways, too. What was it? Winder was pitching, I think, on Sunday, some guy that I had never heard of before. Wins in a 2-1, I think, run game. So the pitching, of which was a large concern for a lot of you as fans, seems to have kind of figured it out for now. And obviously with the bats being what they are and what they can be, it hasn't been consistent. Now, that's one thing that we joke around. They've been consistently inconsistent when it comes to runs because they're either hot or they're not. The thing that's different this year compared to last is when they're not, they're still finding a way to win games. And that is what I think is exciting as a fan right now, is it's not, okay, they've got to put up 8 runs or they're going to lose. They're winning these games that are 2-1, that are 5-1. I mean, these lower end run games, they've been right there, and they've been playing fun. Now, the question that I do have, and I think it's on people's minds when it has, Miguel Sano. It's been on a lot of people's minds of, how far is Miguel and how does Sano make it through the season as a Minnesota Twin? Now they're finding, because you got Jeffers coming in and trying to kind of find his rhythm here. I think he's been getting there in the lineup, but Sano was to have surgery on a torn meniscus in his left knee. Now, I'm not trying to make light of this because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have a torn meniscus in which you've had to have your knee scoped. I've been one of them. I think the turnaround of that, now granted, what you're required to do physically on the baseball field or a baseball diamond versus being in high school, completely different. But this, to me, doesn't read as it's a serious injury. I think, in fact, it's quite common. Now, I'm not trying to make light of it, so don't get mad at me. And I'm not a doctor, so don't be all smart aleck in the text club, as many of you prefer to do on any given subject. But I bring that up with all the chatter of, well, maybe this is the chance to get rid of Sano. If it's going to be based on this injury, it's going to be something that I think has been lingering in people's minds far longer than this. We'll try to connect with Chris Atterbury here in just a little bit. Again, he is going to be taking over at 5:30. It's shortened drive time news of Jack Sunday. He'll get you all you need to know as we gear up for Twins. Somebody does, in fact, love the Cars. Me comes in with 3 exclamation points. Candio was the first album I ever bought. Love the Cars. I cranked up the radio till he started talking again. Well, thanks for not turning the dial when I started talking. You just turned it down a little bit. I can live with that as long as you keep it locked in to 790 AM, 94.1 or 104.7 FM, KFGO. We'll continue this conversation a little bit. As I said, I know Chris is going to be joining us when he's got a chance here. In the meantime, I'll use that as an opportunity to get back to some of your messages that you had sent in at a variety of topics. At the start of the show, if you're just joining us, the question was, what's going on with how idiotic we've all been witnessing? Now, I keep going back to the social media aspect because are we seeing it more? And is that enabling more people to say, well, geez, I want to be the next TikTok star. I want to go viral on Instagram. So you go out there and you do stupid things. The latest just being that Dave Chappelle was a fan attempted to tackle him on stage in Hollywood. Didn't work. Chappelle's a big boy now. And that guy got what he had coming to him after security pulled him off stage. But that's just the latest example of a variety of stupid things we've been seeing when it comes to behavior of people at all ages. So I said, what's the driving factor here for you? And I'm going to go back to some of the messages that have been waiting for me as we had Bill Warner on. Tyler, as this country gets further away from God, the more we will see bad behavior. Another one, Tyler, you can start with Black Lives Matter and $2 billion of property damage along with Defund the Police campaign. Defund the Police has allowed people who feel they have a right. Let me ask you this, because I just watched on the national news up here on the monitors that are inside the Gunderson studio of KFGO. There is a Proud Boy, which is an ironic name, that just pled guilty to sedition. You know, when you had the Trump supporters go and storm the Capitol and assault police officers and break in to Congress, do you have the same attitude towards them as what you just displayed in the text club about Black Lives Matter? Because I asked a couple of weeks ago if people understand what the difference was on the streets of Minneapolis and Seattle versus what were on the steps of the Capitol. I'm not saying that what transpired in the property damage or the protests and how they got out of control and turned into riots, quite frankly, I'm not condoning that behavior. But if you're going to throw the one group out, I really hope you have the same attitude for the other group that went out and did something that resulted in police officers dying out in the Capitol. Because if you're talking about defund the police and just obeying what the laws are, that group on Capitol Hill didn't do it either. Now, as far as the Black Lives Matter, those riots that happened, and yes, they turned into them at some times, including right here in Fargo. Justice was served on some of that. I'd say on most of that for the people that got caught. And I throw the book at them. I'm fine with that. Obey the law. But I hope that it's then being enforced equally in your mind if you're going to be sending that in. Tyler, lack of discipline, respect, no accountability for one's actions. Take your pick. Yeah, that says a mouthful, but it's tough to argue with you. Tyler, with our last president being kind of bullish and people thinking that's okay, Supreme Court possibly taking rights away from women, pardon me. And you are right about everyone having a cell phone. I think that the craving for attention, and somebody said the entitlement with the lack of accountability for doing wrong, that all balled together as a powder keg of what we're seeing explode night after night on a variety of stages across the country. It's stupid. I watched Idiocracy for just a little bit over the weekend, which was supposed to be intended to be a comedy. Boy, is that becoming more and more of a documentary. And that is a sad state of being right here in 2022. I'm going to get you some of these messages. I'll come back. I know there's others waiting for me, and I'm sure you all get back to those right after this. I'm Tyler Axis. You're listening to KFGO Fargo. Don't go anywhere. forgot. We got audio that I got to play for you. It's baseball related. I was to do with Chris Atterbury because if you are a regular listener, you know that the first weekend of Twins baseball went down and took in Saturday's game. And I brought back to you a story that baffled me as we watched a line drive come out along the third baseline, ricochet off a couple of people, and strike a young girl. And that girl cried. It was heartbreaking to see. But then there was a guy that sat right in front of her that tried to disclose and hide that he had the ball. And we chanted politely, and that's even confirmed by the guard and the staff of the Minnesota Twins that were there, saying, hey, you guys are being polite about this. When we said, look, give her the ball. Now, that never happened. He never gave her the ball. He offered a T-shirt because the dude got a T-shirt from the T-shirt cannon. How greedy of a fellow is this? I have not moved past that. But what reminded me of that happened last night in a different stadium for two different teams, one of which I was very hard on that fan base because they were throwing garbage at the Cleveland Guardians not but 3 weeks ago. But take a listen to what happened when Aaron Judge hit a bomb of a home run. That child will not ever forget what happened last night. He's a Yankees fan in a stadium that is not in New York. We're watching the Blue Jays, and you have Aaron Judge, the namesake of the jersey you're wearing, hit a home run to your section. And as you watch that ball come hurling towards you, faster than you could probably ever imagine, the guy in front of him catches that home run, a Blue Jays fan, and you know what he does? Without hesitation, he turns around, sees that young boy wearing a Yankees jersey, probably didn't even know it was Judge who just hit the home run, gave him the ball. Kid instantly goes to Waterworks. It was a touching scene. They embraced, they hugged, we celebrated. That seems like the no-brain thing to do, right? That kid's forever going to remember that moment because of that guy just being a bro and turning around and giving that kid the ball. That's why I was so upset on that Saturday at Target Field when that selfish man kept that ball to himself and tried to hide it from the rest of us. I know not all of you agreed with me. A majority of you did. Some of you said, Tyler, mind your own business. Nuh-uh. That's why. You go and you think about the impact that stranger had at a sporting event for that young kid, all because of that baseball. That's why. I'm happy that he did it. I just wish we would have saw the same from our Twins fan down in Target Field. 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. Text messages into 35270. That is the eye consultants of North Dakota Text Club. Variety of topics at hand. Tyler, the trouble is nobody will admit that rights and responsibility balance. For 30 years, people I have heard we have a right to, but nothing is my responsibility. Let's go the other way for a generation and see if it helps. That's a mouthful. That the responsibility that comes with your rights, I'm not turning this into a gun debate, so don't think that, but I own guns. And whenever we talk about guns, people say, yeah, but it's my right. Okay, but with that does come your responsibility to safely store it, use it, and all of that. And so you're right. In that responsibility to be a good neighbor and respect your neighbor as well. If something has gone wrong, I don't know that it pins back to one thing, but it certainly seems like it's accelerated. And again, it could be because everyone's got that camcorder in their pocket now, so everybody sees more of the behavior. But my gut tells me we haven't all been acting like this forever, have we? We'll continue that conversation, plus people telling me how obvious it was where the leak came from on the Supreme Court. I'm not ignoring you. I'll come back to that as well. But I got to get you caught up with KFGO News. We'll check in with Rusty Halverson. We'll talk about some of those soil conditions in the Devil's Lake Basin when we come back here on KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Dakota Monument. Dakota Monument Company, making memories last forever. Call for an in-home consultation.
A partly sunny sky, 60. Mike Paul Juergens. Fargo police responded to the Islamic Center at 601 28th Street South shortly after noon today, with the initial report describing the call as a hazardous materials investigation. Shortly after 2:30, streets in the general vicinity reopened and only access to the center's parking lot was restricted. A law enforcement source said the investigation surrounded a suspicious package. The city spokeswoman later confirmed the source report, saying a person who was acting suspiciously left a backpack outside the building and left. A police canine responded and alerted that more investigation was warranted. The Red River Regional Bomb Squad then determined that the backpack did not contain any explosive materials. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says the leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft opinion striking down Roe v. Wade opens the door to a dangerous erosion of Americans' privacy rights. Ellison says there is some cause for concern.
We don't need to panic. Roe is still the law of the land in America, though likely not for long. In Minnesota, however, the right to abortion and to make your own reproductive health care decisions is protected by the 1995 Minnesota Supreme Court decision called the Gomez case.
Ellison says rights to privacy affected by overturning Roe include the right to choose birth control and to marry a person of a different sex. 61 and partly sunny. This is KFGO News. "60 degrees. This is KFGO News. The lawyer for Bismarck Photography Company and its owner is criticizing a consumer fraud lawsuit filed by the Attorney General's office. Fargo attorney Tim O'Keefe contends that the move is an attempt to grab cheap headlines. He says the Attorney General's office asserted its own opinions into the complaint, which is filled with speculation and puffery. He describes the sudden closing of Glaser Images as a failed business, not an elaborate conspiracy. The state says it had received more than 500 complaints that total nearly $1.5 million. Glaser closed last fall, citing the pandemic as part of the reason for the abrupt shutdown. The state of North Dakota and the federal government have filed a lawsuit over a large oil spill that contaminated the Little Missouri River and a tributary in 2016. The federal lawsuit against Belle Fourche Pipeline seeks civil penalties and nearly $100,000 in reimbursement for the Department of Environmental Quality's work in responding to the 600,000-gallon oil spill. An E12 education bill the Republican-controlled Minnesota Senate passed, totaling $30 million to beef up literacy programs in public schools, could hardly be more different than the House Democrats' plan to add $3 billion to public school funding over the next 4 years. State Senator Roger Chamberlain, a Republican from Lido Lake, says half of Minnesota third graders can't read at grade level, and if a child can't read, little else matters.
Why are we in this spot? It's not because we don't fund. We haven't got the wheels right.
St. Paul Democrat Aaron Murphy.
I worry a great deal about pumping $30 million into literacy when there aren't adequate educators or ESPs in our schools to actually carry out the function.
Education money will be an area of intense debate between Democrats and Republicans in the final 2.5 weeks of the legislative session. Near 60 for our high this afternoon. We hit 61 momentarily at our KFGO studios, and we're at 59 now, partly sunny. 40 overnight, partly cloudy. Tomorrow, 66, a partly sunny day. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
From South Dakota to the Devil's Lake Basin, Rusty, well, he's been everywhere, man. And he's right here in the KFGO studio right now. How's it going?
Technology, baby.
Yeah. The cellular phone's a beautiful invention.
Yes, it is. Yes,
You're probably using the old wall-mounted phone, though, for these.
Yeah, production studio line for these. Yeah.
Not that anyone cares, but.
No.
Throw it out there.
Inside radio stuff.
It's not a rotary phone, I assure you that.
No, it's not. No.
We don't have the newest technology, but we have technology that sometimes works.
Yep.
Your phone being one of them. So you're on the phone with Devil's Lake. What's the latest here?
Well, cool and wet soils in the Devil's Lake Basin, meaning that planting still on hold for many producers in that area. Dave Nelson, an independent seed advisor for Fosco Ag in Devil's Lake, says growers are pulling equipment out of the Quonset, but that's about it.
But there's a lot of guys that are out with their big pumps and pumping water off the places that they can, so they can speed it up a little bit. But for the most part, nothing's happening really yet. It's north of Devil's Lake is very, very wet because we went to bed wet last fall, and pretty much everywhere, with the 30 inches of snow we had around here, it's wet everywhere. But the snow is finally gone. But I'm thinking probably it's going to be at least 2 weeks before we see any real progress in the field.
Now, Dave has not fielded many calls yet about producers looking to switch up their crops or crop maturities, but he is prepared for some of those conversations to begin soon.
Did Dave drop a saying in ag saying, we went to bed wet?
Yeah.
Last fall? I like it. I'm keeping that one, Dave. I appreciate you dropping that hint of knowledge on. Because he's right. It was so wet, at the end there.
Yeah.
I just like that saying.
Checking out End On Weather, a great resource. Our friend Daryl Richardson, of course. Soil temps up by Bottineau, 32 degrees from 2 to 4 inches, up by Wolford about 48 degrees, down to 4 inches, and that's just a little bit chilly yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what's the temp for the soil saying, okay, now it's time to get the wheels turning?
Generally about in that 50-degree range or higher.
Yeah,
I
was wondering 55, 60 is what my gut told me, so I wasn't too far off.
Yep. I think you can plant lettuce in like really cold soils, but we don't grow a lot of lettuce.
We do not. We do not. Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, Rusty Alverson, Sarah Heinrich, multi-award-winning journalist of agriculture. You can go to KFGO.com, learn more, just click on that agriculture tab. Here's what's coming up. CBS National News. We'll get you all your national headlines. Messages for Mom. Have you called yet? If you don't know the number, here's all you got to do. 35270. You text in MOM, M-O-M, to that. You're going to get a text back from us. It's going to give you a number to call. Then you can leave your sweet, dear old mother a Mother's Day message that you can hear on the most listened to station in the area, KFGO. We got some of those messages coming up after CBS. Coming back to your messages in the text club to follow. I'm Tyler Axis, and you got locked into Afternoons Live on KFGO. So I'm going to find where I left off. I said, hey, look, I wasn't avoiding this message. I just couldn't find it for a little bit here. Tyler, it's quite obvious the leak. Well, this is in reference to the Supreme Court leak. Well, we had a lengthy conversation about it yesterday, but we'll indulge. It's quite obvious the leak came from one of the three liberal justices, or possibly even Roberts. It's a grand distraction from all the steaming piles of crap that are the Biden administration comes in. See, but when you throw that out there, then why the timeline? Why now? Why closer to the election when this is still fresh in mind, to where then you motivate people to get out? Because I think if you watch objectively, midterms historically, bad for whoever has the White House. Well, Democrats have it all, except for the court, right? They got the House, they got the Senate, they got the White House. So, that's why I come down to, if it was a leak from the left, why now? Now, yesterday, the conversation, and again, no evidence to it, but it's speculation. That's one thing coming from a talk show host, which is what I am. It's another thing coming from a U.S. senator making the same accusation. That's the left trying to bully to change the outcome of the court. And one could argue, I think there's a debate here of, well, what's to say that somebody from the right didn't put that out? Not necessarily one of the justices. I don't think this came from a justice, from a staff. It's a small pool of people. I don't know if we'll ever find out. And again, I don't think a majority of people care. But with history and some of these other cases, Obamacare being one of them, once you have these last-second changes of opinion that upheld Obamacare, for example, to the delight of some, to the ire of others, you put out there who's where on this issue right now for those that might be in that. Well, I'm persuadable, which judging by this topic every time, a lot of people, there's no persuasion left. You know where you rest on this issue. But when it comes to the legal side of the Supreme Court and a justice looking at this, and all of a sudden you have somebody else with this other opinion, there has been recent examples of people flipping their vote. Now, you get them on record right now, and knowing the passion that the right side has for this very issue, because it has been one of the top issues campaigned on, one of the top issues of which you raise money on when it comes to Republican politics. Donald Trump ran on this, raised a lot of money. So I say, if anything, if this decision stands and actually becomes the official position of the Supreme Court, this will be his biggest part of his legacy, because he got a third of the court appointed on his watch. Now, if you were one of those that could maybe be nudged this way or another on that court, you're on the majority right now, well, the cat's out of the bag, right? You don't want to now be known as that justice that flipped your vote after it came out where you are now, because your legacy in the minds of those right-leaning Republican voters will be you're the person that let it slip through our fingertips of what we've been trying to do for decades. I think it's a compelling argument. Do I have any evidence? Nope. Neither does Kevin Kramer when he's saying, well, this is the left trying to bully, and neither do you texting that in. And the fact is, I don't know that we'll ever find the answer to it. But again, for a lot of people, they don't care who leaked it. They care about what the substance of that opinion is. And they care about the argument that Alito has. And they question where the line gets drawn. If it will be same-sex marriage? How far down the line do you go on the premise of which his argument is, saying, okay, well, that's the bridge too far for us. I don't know that there's a bridge too far for a number of people out there anymore. 35270, that's the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. A variety of other messages in about our topic at hand at the top of the show. And I'll get back to that. Because it wasn't quite lengthy, and you know how this machine breaks those up. So I'll tell you what, I'll proofread before I get you caught up with this KFJ weather from Too Tall Tom Schmansky. We'll get into this. I want to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Obviously, Star Wars Day, we'll rank them. We'll let you rank them for us as far as that trilogy goes, and so much more. And the final hour of Afternoons Live, which is right around the corner. It is Wednesday afternoon. KFGO time is 3:48. I'm Tyler Axis. Don't go anywhere. give some credit to RBG for the current Supreme Court makeup. I'm going to repeat that because I'm sure there's some people screaming. Tyler, got to give some credit to RBG for the current Supreme Court makeup. Comes in, tell me where that's wrong. Might not please you, but it's quite frankly an honest text that comes into the text club. But I thank them for sending that in. That allowed for that last minute. Now, granted, you know where I stand on where the Supreme Court really started taking the dive in credibility, and it comes more so from the United States Senate and primarily from, Mitch McConnell. You know, and the way of which they went about after Ruth Bader Ginsburg did pass being on that court. But you can't deny that staying on to the point that she did, knowing just the health situation. I'm not trying to take anything away from her legacy on the court, except for the fact that when those things arose, she did not step down and allow, say, Barack Obama. Now, we don't know. Look, because Mitch McConnell was there, and who knows what he would have allowed because we know about the whole Merrick Garland situation. But this is a long road getting to where we did and where we are right now. So thanks for that message. Here's what's coming up. We do have Chris Atterbury finally going to be joining us at 4:10 after we get you caught up with all the news you need to know. We're talking national with CBS. We're talking local KFGO. So we will get you talking Twins with Linex and, of course, Jiffy Lube. So that's coming up. If you have a question on the Twins or what you can expect tonight later on, send them in, 35270, and we will get to those. Final one about the subject at hand, because you had some jabroni try to tackle Dave Chappelle. I said, what in the hell is going on? How do we get so stupid? And a lot of great, thoughtful messages come in on that. And this is the last one I've got time for in this hour. Tyler, so much to say here, but I think many of our political discussions are arguments from the outer 10% on each side, and that we need pragmatic people discussing with common sense. So basically they're saying that this is the fringe is taking out all the oxygen, boys and girls. And you know what? There's some truth to it when it comes to a variety of topics. I mean, you have them, and they're pulling us further and further. And part of that has to do with the way it's presented across. I don't care what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say on a lot of things, but boy, it's force-fed to us. AOC, I don't care. She's from New York. Why do I care in North Dakota? But boy, we get force-fed a lot of what she says, too. Matt Gaetz on the Republican side. I don't know what the equivalent would be on the liberal side, but those are the things that are put out there, and that's what we end up having a conversation about as well. More messages, and I tell you what, after Chris Atterbury again, it's you, me, this microphone, and your cell phone. It's Wednesday afternoon. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked into 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO. not the second Wednesday of the month, but we're moving. A line change-up. Keeping it real with Eric Hatch. Hi, Eric. Welcome to the studio.
There is nothing more welcoming than walking into the studio and you're looking at me thinking, what in the world are you doing here? And I'm like, I emailed you, bro.
Yeah.
I thought we got this.
And I confirmed it said email. I'm glad to have you in studio. We're talking real estate.
It's good to be here.
The fact checker at 4, though, that the fact is I'm an idiot, a moron. I forgot. And we'll take all your real estate questions. But this report, my fact checkers, there's been a misnomer out there because we always think that all you boomers are bad at falling for fake news. Right? We all assume that, don't we? No one wants to join. You all think that.
No, just you.
Yeah, it's only me. It's you boomers out there that fall for the fake news. You'll co-sign things. Yeah. You don't have a choice. It's all you boomers out there falling for fake news. Study came out saying that's not true. Boomers are no more likely to believe misinformation online than all y'all millennials and young people out there. So everyone's falling for fake news. That's why we do a fact checker at 4. We'll do it next time and perhaps tomorrow. But here's what's coming up. KFGO News, Keeping It Real with Eric Hatch. You got a real estate question, buying, selling, all of it's on the table. Send those in to 35270. Call us, 237-5948. Keeping It Real right after this.
KFGO News, partly sunny and 59. I'm Paul Jerkins. A suspicious backpack outside the Islamic Center of Fargo-Moorhead at 601 28th Street South in Fargo led to a police and fire response shortly after noon. City spokeswoman Katie Eddish.
The Fargo Police Department responded to a report of a suspicious package located outside the Islamic Society of Fargo-Moorhead within the 600 block of 28th Street South. The individual reporting the incident said that an unidentified male was showing suspicious behavior outside the mosque. The male left a backpack near the building and exited the parking lot.
A police canine arrived and alerted that more investigation should be conducted. The Red River Regional Bomb Squad was called and determined that the backpack was not a threat. Nearby businesses were told to shelter in place for nearly 2 hours. A subsidiary of North Dakota's only Fortune 500 company says it won't move ahead with plans to build a natural gas pipeline from western North Dakota's oil patch to the eastern part of the state. WBI Energy is a unit of Bismarck-based MDU Resources Group. The company says the project is not viable due to regulatory uncertainty, limited in-state demand, and rising construction, labor, and land acquisition costs. The legislature in November set aside $150 million in federal coronavirus money to help build a trans-state pipeline, hoping to spur industrial development. Investigators from the FAA are in Mankato, Minnesota, to determine why a small plane crashed last night, injuring the pilot. It happened at the Mankato Regional Airport. The pilot was the only one on board when the plane crashed during a landing attempt. The extent of the pilot's injuries has not been released. The judge overseeing the federal civil rights cases of 4 former Minneapolis police officers in the killing of George Floyd has accepted the terms of Derek Chauvin's plea agreement and will sentence him to 20 to 25 years in prison. Chauvin pleaded guilty in December to violating Floyd's civil rights. The former officer admitted he kept his knee on Floyd's neck, resulting in his death. KFGO Weather Center forecast about 40 for the overnight low, a partly cloudy sky tomorrow. Partly sunny. Meteorologist Tom Shemansky is looking for a high of about 66. And then partly sunny Friday, 70. Partly sunny, 59. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
Usually on the second Wednesday of the month. This month on the first Wednesday, I'm like, Keeping It Real. Eric Hatch is in studio. Of course, you know Eric. He's a regular here once a month. Welcome back.
I'm the norm of KFGO is what it is. Yeah.
Eric. Hello. Yeah, because you were here earlier today.
That's right. What are you up to, Mr. Peterson? My ideal weight if I were 11 feet tall, right? Like, it sounds perfect. It fits for me, too. It's great.
Glad to have you in studio.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
There's a couple of things, real estate. We have people asking questions of the Twins.
Uh-huh.
Your thoughts on the Minnesota Twins? They got 11 of 12.
Yeah. Good thoughts.
Good thoughts, yes. Real encouraged by
they are on their way to third in their division is what they are.
They're number one. They're number one right now. We'll see if they can maintain that. You're number one as far as real estate. and
thanks.
getting that pushed around from buying, selling. That's the transition we get into real estate. I do have questions, though, because we've had water in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that impacts if somebody wants to sell their home, right? Maybe they're south of town. I mean, I think about all these communities that are fighting water. This has to weigh on people's minds when it comes to buying, right?
Yeah. I've been selling real estate now for 16 years, so that I've lived through some floods as a realtor. And the first thing that happens is the real estate industry about shuts down when there's flood fighting. We're not dealing with that in the Fargo Metro right now, but you're seeing the Hillsboroughs of the world that are obviously in really tough spots. So first off is those industries, those markets showing buying, it all just subsides until it actually until the water retracts. But if you are in a flood zone, there's a couple of things. The first is flood insurance. And flood insurance can be a really awesome thing until it's not, right? Like it's a really awesome thing because there are some folks, like even the back corner of my lot. I live in South Fargo, and I have the back corner of my lot that's technically in the floodplain. But I back to the river, and I have a large man-made dike that's back there that the city came through 10 years ago and put in to protect the neighborhood. So even though a part of my property is in the floodplain, I don't have to have flood insurance. It's not a big deal for me. My lender doesn't require me to have flood insurance. For some folks that are in a higher risk, where it's their actual house that's touching, or a garage or an outbuilding, that can be inordinately expensive. And so that's an extra, sometimes $2,000 to $5,000 a year in premium. And if you think about the impact and the buying power that buyer now has, you're in like Barney Rubble trouble. Like you're in serious issue, because if you're spending an extra $400 a month, when it comes to buying power, that's $100,000 maybe. I'll do the math so I don't sound like such a guy that's making things up, but that's serious. Somebody that can buy a $300,000 house now can only afford a $200,000 house. Like it's a massive, massive swing.
As far as if I'm looking to sell, right, and I'm not in a floodplain, for example, but there's been known to be overland water issues. What is there any reporting requirement? Because you think about, well, you had an inspection done. You might not have had any water damage to the house, but that owner that's looking to sell knows that every time we get 2 inches, water pools in this area. Is there any requirement on that?
Yeah. So what you're speaking of is disclosing, and every seller has to fill out a property disclosure statement saying this is everything we know about the property. And so if you've had any seepage in the basement, if you've had any roof leaks, if you have a water main that issue, whatever it may be, you have to disclose. Otherwise, you are leaving yourself subject to a massive amount of litigation and pain. But that's only for your personal property. Right. So if the road that you take to get to your personal property has overland flooding to it, but your actual property isn't underwater at any time, you don't have to disclose that. So the due diligence of the buyer as well as the realtors that are representing is really imperative in that kind of situation.
Very good. Your thoughts and questions coming into 35270. All your real estate. That's your chance for free advice here.
And I can talk about Kirby Puckett, too, if you want to talk about twins.
Kirby Puckett. That was my first starstruck moment. I was in the gymnasium, and he was our guest speaker. Kirby Puckett was like an arm length from me.
I have to share. My Aunt Ann is listening right now. She's in Sartell, Minnesota. Used to live in Fargo and listens to all my stuff and loves KFGO. My Aunt Ann took me to a Twins game. I think it was about 1990, and we left the game at like the 7th inning to go and get autographs. I went with my older cousin. She finished watching the game, and out comes first Alan Anderson. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get Al Anderson's autograph when I did. And then on the baseball, here comes Kirby Puckett. And I am, from me to you, I'm like 4 feet away from Kirby, and he's walking up. And my Aunt Ann gives me her camera, and it's around my neck as though I'm paparazzi, ready to take this picture. I get Kirby Puckett's autograph, and I fail to take the picture. And to this day, my Aunt Ann still makes me sit at the kids' table, right? Like it's still this like family grudge for forever.
It's really just you had the one job.
I know.
You had one job.
I failed you. I'm sorry. I still love you. Please put me back in the Christmas card.
And we love that you listen to KFGO and all things with Eric Hatch as well. Question comes in for you. Tyler, can you ask Eric, if a person found a gem of a craftsman style in a small town, once purchased, could it be moved and the property be donated back to the town?
Could the property be moved? And then
I'll read it for you one more time. If a person found a gem of a craftsman style in a small town, once purchased, could it be moved, meaning the house, obviously, and the property of which was there, be donated back to the town?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Very unique question.
I will tell you that if you are going to move a house, and we work with some clients that have done that. There was a house on the Fargo Country Club that one of our clients picked up and moved out of town. Those moving expenses are about $50,000 just to pick it up and to move it. It's not an inexpensive go. And then where it lands, it's going to take foundation. It needs a foundation. It needs a yard. It needs water, sewer, all those things that are needed to be brought to it, as well as electrical. And so it's not an inexpensive thing to do by any means. The overall question that the listener has, can you donate that back to the small town? I really don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that before, and I don't want to make it up and try to sound smarter than I am.
Yeah, we don't need any legal papers being sent to the KFGO studio saying, hey, I got this from Eric. It is a unique question because you think about some of those small towns in which they've got vacant lots there. It's where, you can purchase them for relatively cheap.
Here's what happens if
leaving
you...
it to them, I don't know.
If you donate that back, you're basically saying, I don't want to pay taxes on this anymore. And I could see that being an issue for some small towns. There's, I think it's Hendrum, Minnesota. It was 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. They were giving away lots for free because they wanted somebody to actually come and start paying those taxes. Mm-hmm. So to the texter's question, my gut says no. I don't think they'll allow you to give it back. They're going to want somebody to own that so that they're collecting taxes on it.
Right, and then to have the expense of somebody going and wanting the lifestyle of a small town, which we've talked about in previous conversations, and then to build on that lot, it might be an uphill battle for you. But not saying it's impossible. We just don't know. Appreciate that unique question, though.
Yeah.
If you have a question, buying, selling, what goes into the whole process, peace of mind, 35270, you send them in. Eric Catch is keeping it real. He's with you all the way till 5 o'clock. We'll see what's coming up on the drive. Truncated, it is from 5 to 5:30. Twins baseball on these airwaves coming up a little bit later on. I'm Tyler Axis, and you got a locked into KFGO Fargo. New house, you call Eric Hatch, and keeping it real with Eric Hatch on here. That was a tough one. You didn't have to roll your eyes like that.
Oh my gosh, that was a stretch, and I appreciated every bit of it.
Keeping it real. Not next Wednesday, it's today. And it takes
we heard that commercial of the second Wednesday of every month, and it's today, babies.
You're going down to watch some horse racing. Maybe?
I'm going to Louisville. Yeah, there will be remnance of the races of the horses, but I won't be there for the fun.
Yeah, the hangovers too,
That's
probably, because you're going the day after. I haven't paid any attention this year to the Kentucky Derby, but I'm sure I'll be watching.
Do you usually?
I at least know the names of a couple of the front runners.
Yeah,
I might be there. I'll have a mint julep on Saturday.
Okay, thanks for your sacrifice.
Yeah, that was just somebody's got to do it. We talked about water. The other thing that came out earlier today, interest rates going up 0.5%. I know that's attention grabbing because that's the largest leap, I think, in 20 some years.
Mm-hmm.
But in the grand scheme of things, I just want your thoughts on interest rates, what that's doing for the market.
So it's not the mortgage rates that went up today.
Okay.
It's the federal interest rate. And so those are two different things. The federal interest rate went up 0.5%, which is the highest since I think 2000. From what I was reading earlier.
22 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, this is obviously a significant thing. The push right now is to curb inflation. Mm-hmm. Listeners out there as well will certainly attest to if they had a mortgage in the 80s, it was in the 15 to 20%. Historic interest rates over the test of time of the last 100 years in the United States is about 6% is that average. We're still under that 6%. Right. Which is means that the affordability is still high. But man, I take it this way. This is an analogy I shared with somebody the other day, and it made sense. And let's say I want to go to Scheels because I saw that Scheels was advertising buy one pair of shoes, get a pair free. And so I'm watching. I'm like, oh man, that'd be awesome. And so I stroll into Scheels next week, and they're like, yeah, the sale's done. So I'm frustrated. I'm ticked off. I'm like, I wanted 2 pairs of shoes for the price of one. This is really frustrating. And I'm going to walk out and I'm not going to buy a pair of shoes. Well, because I'm frustrated. But I look down the next week and I still got holes in my shoes. And they're still dirty and run down. And I'm eventually going to have to go back and buy that new pair of shoes. And that new pair of shoes now isn't even at the buy one, get one free. And it's not at the price that it was today. It's in a 2-month price when that price has continued to go up. And that's what's happening right now with real estate is people are used to the buy one, get one free. They're used to the superb deal that was there when it comes to buying property. That superb deal of a low interest rate isn't there anymore. And so people are pausing their purchase, but emotionally, they're still going to look around and say, I don't like the walls that I'm in, or there's not enough space, or I need less neighbors on top of me. Whatever that pain may be, it will exacerbate itself. And I'm confident that we will still continue to see a high demand market despite those interest rates because people still have holes in their shoes.
We'll send an invoice to Steve Shields about the free ads you just got. But you're absolutely right, because because I got into that window, right?
Yeah,
I consider myself very lucky, and so do my friends.
You got the buy one. They're making fun of you, or
yeah, they're like, "Well, you got lucky there, didn't you, man?" I'm like, well, yeah, I struck when the iron was hot.
Yeah,
because of what our needs were, and we had no idea what the future was going to hold. But looking back, yeah, I consider myself lucky because we bought and sold when we did. Mm-hmm. But you're right. I mean, it's not like, oh, geez, now everything's to a halt. I mean, the market is still just incredible out there.
I saw a stat earlier today that talked about the reason why we're seeing this increase. So we have to look at the landscape of real estate in general. 2000 to 2008, mortgages were just handed out. If you could fog a mirror, you got a mortgage. If you've seen the movie The Big Short, it really paints the picture well, or read the book The Big Short. It gives this incredible insight to how so many people were buying homes. And so they were building aplenty, right? Builders were able to capitalize and make hella cash on that and made such good money. But then when the market crashed, they stopped building. Locally in the Red River Valley, things stayed pretty constant. It wasn't like there was just this total drying up of nobody built, but it wasn't like it was. And that went on from 2008 until roughly 2018. The entire country saw a dissolving of homes that were supposed to be built. The National Association of Home Builders says that there needs to be about 2 million homes built annually in order to keep up with the growth of the country. And our population continues to increase, and because our population continues to increase, so do opportunities. And now we're behind like 5 million houses, Tyler. Nationally. Locally, I don't know what that number is, but the Fargo-Moorhead area adds 3,000 to 5,000 people per year, and that ends up being like 2.6 people per household. So that's still 2,000 new houses. And so take a look, and there has to be 2,000 new houses built every year just to keep up with demand, or apartments or anything else. And we're not building that much. And so the problem is compounding. And until we can build a whole lot more houses, or until everybody chooses to live in the basement of their parents' home, here we go.
A lot of shrills out there saying, no, not in my house. Eric Hatch is keeping it real. You have a real estate question, now's your chance to send it in to 35270. We'll also take your calls after this KFGO News Update at 237-5948. One thing I know every time we have this conversation, lake property comes up. We'll talk about that and whatever else you have as far as questions this final half hour of Afternoons Live. Now keeping it real. I'm Tyler Axis. Don't go anywhere.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Dakota Monument. Dakota Monument Company, making memories last forever. Call for an in-home consultation.
Partly sunny, Fargo-Moorhead 59. I'm Paul Jurgens. A suspicious backpack was left outside the Islamic Society building at 601 28th Street South in Fargo this afternoon, prompting fire and police to respond. The initial report was described as a hazardous materials call.
Fargo Police Department's K-9 unit was deployed and alerted officers that further investigation of the bag's contents may be warranted. Nearby businesses were asked to shelter in place and a perimeter was established. The Red River Valley Bomb Squad was deployed and determined there were no bomb materials within the bag.
City spokesperson Katie Edish. That scene was cleared after about 2 hours. The person who left the backpack has not been found. 59, this is KFGO News. This is KFGO News. The lawyer for a Bismarck photography company and its owner is criticizing a consumer fraud lawsuit filed by the Attorney General's office. Fargo attorney Tim O'Keefe contends that the move is an attempt to grab cheap headlines. He says the Attorney General's office asserted its own opinions into the complaints, which is filled with speculation and puffery. He describes the sudden closing of Gloucester Images as a failed business, not an elaborate conspiracy. Crews are beginning to control erosion at a Cavalier County, North Dakota dam in danger of failing and causing worse flooding. The National Guard has been working to help stabilize the Burbanus Dam using Black Hawk helicopters to brace the dam with 1-ton sandbags. Erosion is stabilized, but the potential for high flows from the dam still exists, and the Guard will remain at the site. The state of North Dakota and the federal government have filed a lawsuit over a large oil spill that contaminated the Little Missouri River and a tributary in 2016. The federal lawsuit against Belle Fourche Pipeline seeks civil penalties and nearly $100,000 in reimbursement for the Department of Environmental Quality's work in responding to the 600,000-gallon oil spill. The lawsuit also names Bridger Pipeline and raises allegations related to a 2015 oil spill in eastern Montana that affected the Yellowstone River. Both pipeline businesses are part of True Companies based in Casper, Wyoming. Fargo-Moorhead will be partly cloudy overnight with the low around 40 degrees for tomorrow. KFGO meteorologist Tom Szymanski is calling for about 66 as our high, partly sunny. Friday, partly sunny, the wind will pick up somewhat, and 70, and then rain chances for the weekend. Partly sunny, windy Saturday. Chance of showers, possible thunderstorms Saturday afternoon, about 72. Mostly cloudy, windy Sunday, shower chances, and 68. Fargo-Moorhead, partly sunny, 59 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
You know, people don't forget, as we learned when Eric Hatch had one job, just take the damn photo, man. Somebody texted, I ate lunch with Rod Carew at a baseball camp when I was a kid, and we'll never forget. People don't forget, especially when you have a cool experience like that.
Yeah, might I share, my Aunt Ann did manage to text me. Ann, I know you're still listening. She said, I'm laughing so hard. Good thing I went potty before your show. I remember that like it was yesterday. So,
see, now you have
got there.
You have that mental image, just not the physical copy that you can hang on the fridge or in a frame.
That's right.
And it's all Eric's fault. Let's talk Lake property. If you have questions as well, 35270. Call us 237-5948. This final 25 minutes, any question you have is free real estate advice. CBS National News on the way. We'll come back. Keeping it real with Eric Hatch next. we were playing a song by the band The Cars. And I said, nobody really loves the Cars, do they? They're just there in the background. I'm going to ask Eric Hatch, my guess. It's keeping it real. Where do you rate the Cars?
I don't know if I rate them at all,
See,
which probably is the answer to the question.
That's not, my take wasn't so hot anymore, but I did offend one of our listeners. They said I turned it up when the song came on, turned you down. The Cars is just there. I don't know why Billy Squire made me think of that, but one question that I do have when it comes to real estate, and we get questions every month when we have you on about lake property.
Yeah, every time.
Every time. And every now and then you'll see one pop up. I mean, do they, because it's so limited, I assume, do they go off the shelf, so to speak, quickly? Or how is that market compared to just the, hey, here's my year-round house?
Yeah. From November until March or April, it is rare to see a lake property come on the market. Completely rare, because lake properties show so well in the summer. Right. My wife and I recently bought a new lake place, and the pictures like won us over because there's all these aerial views and the trees are changing color, and you see the lake just sparkle in the sunshine. And when you're trying to advertise a place where it's like, look, there's snow everywhere, and you can't actually get a feel for it. Like, lake properties are so much about the outside. So what happens is we originally are cutting off 6 months of advertising time. Mm-hmm. And so that does bring a much larger increase of demand for those summer months, so essentially April to September or October. As that happens, there is such a shortage of lake places. We've seen the rich get richer over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Those that have had wealth have now compounded some of that money. And because travel hadn't happened, travel is obscene right now. If you've been to any airport, not only are the prices crazy, but there are just lines out of every door because travel is back. But for that 2-year period, travel was not back. And so people said, if I can't get out of here, where can I escape to that's a drive away? And that's where we find ourselves now, is that demand has increased. There's more buyers, more people with wealth. The prices continue to go up, but people are saying, I want to have something that is an hour away instead of something that is 7 hours away. Right. And so they're choosing to retreat to and escape to, because COVID has exacerbated one thing for us. And that is, our home is not just where we live. It's now where we work. It's where we exercise, is where we educate, is where we retreat to. And people are investing more and more into real estate. So lake prices are crazy right now. And I don't see that slowing down, but we will know when, if ever, another recession is coming, because it'll be felt there first.
That's the first one that slows down.
My opinion is those second home markets will feel it first. A Phoenix or a Scottsdale area, they will get hit before Fargo gets hit and before Minneapolis gets hit, is because so many homes down in that area are second home properties that at any given time down in Scottsdale, and I don't know if you've been to the Phoenix Metro, you can drive for an hour and a half and still be in town. And like, it is such a large spread of a metro, and there's so many houses that are there, but half those houses sit vacant because people are escaping there on a couple weekends a month and that sort. And so it's a peculiar market, but those second home markets, whether it be lakes or Scottsdale or anything else, those will usually feel the recession first.
That just kind of gave me shivers, saying, hey, you could be driving an hour and a half and stay within the metro. Now that's just my own personal opinion. I know that to each their own, but not for me. When it comes to the different sides of this river, I know we talk about property tax, we talk about income taxes. Is there any difference when it comes to the secondary home?
You pay tax in the place that you live for 6 months and 1 day. I know some people that have moved down to Puerto Rico, and there's very low tax rates there. And then there's other people who will live in Fargo for 6 months and 1 day, and then they'll live at the lake the rest of the time. There's other folks that are skirting by and trying to find those opportunities to say, I'm actually living at the lake full time, but I keep my Fargo condo, or I keep my Fargo house, my North Dakota house. So I'm not calling anybody out. I certainly understand playing those games and trying to keep your income taxes low.
Everyone's wishing they could do that themselves. Don't roll your eyes. That's just the honest truth. And if you can, why not? The other time that we were discussing things last month is some of those rural towns. This person talking about a small town. Nothing's changed there, I assume. I mean, the metro area is saying, well, yeah, you can see development here. We still don't have enough homes. You have people that are still maybe looking, well, I could drive 30 miles. That's still.
I think you just struck on something that a lot of people that are moving to Fargo for the first time have no issue driving 30 minutes. They have no issue living in the Castletons and the even all the way up to almost like a Hillsborough and that sort. People don't have issue living a bit outside of town because if you're coming from rural anywhere, you're used to driving a long distance. If you're coming from the Twin Cities, you're used to driving 30 to 45 minutes to get to your job. My sister lives in Centerville, Minnesota, up by White Bear Lake, and she goes down to work at General Mills, which is a 40-minute drive. That's obscene to me because I can get to my lake place in 50 minutes, like I can get to a whole nother world from Fargo to Lake Sally. I can get to a whole nother world in 50 minutes and she can get to another part of the same city. And so when it comes to people living in rural areas, I do think we're going to see either a continual decline or a nice little upswing. And I know that that's not incredible, insightful advice, but rural towns have started to decline over the last 30 or 40 years because people are drawn to larger metros. But those that are within enough proximity, a 30-minute range, if you draw a circle around any large metro, I think you're going to see that surge and that urge for those places to start developing some housing again and to get some opportunities.
And that's exactly where my mind is too. I think back where I'm originally from. Now, you have some people closer to my age going back, taking over farms primarily, the family farms. So, all right, you got maybe just a little up, but some of them are having kids.
But there's not new opportunity they're going to. They're going to old opportunity that's taking the seat.
And that's an interesting point we're just having with an individual back there, frustrated with her job. But you know what? There are unfortunately, now maybe not as much now because, like you say, your home can be your office as well. So you can be hired from someone out of state. But primarily, if you're looking to physically have that, you're leaving there to come into a spot here.
Yeah, you are.
But you know what? If you're coming from there, a Harwood, a Horace, pick any of the small towns within that 30 miles might be enticing.
It's preferred, and it's funny that you say Harwood and Horace because
those
are Fargo and West Fargo extended. Those aren't even small towns anymore. It has a small town feel, but like North Fargo has a small town feel.
Yeah.
But North Fargo is still Fargo. I'm dare I say, and I'm going to upset somebody here. I can't wait for the calls and the texts.
Get used to it. It's a talk show.
Dare I say, Horace is simply a part of Fargo. It's a part of West Fargo. Harwood is just a part of Fargo. It's a part of West. They're still small town communities. They're still protected. But we are now just kind of merged into one.
Well, and I can vouch for that. We had coffee with KFGO. Thanks, Vision Ford of Wahpeton, down in Horace. Was it last week or the week before at the Grove? Beautiful place, fantastic place. I went out there at 8 o'clock, and the people trying to get to town, meaning the actual city of Fargo, West Fargo, at 8 o'clock.
Right,
there are a lot of traffic out there. So even the community itself of Horace, there's a boom going on there. Eric Hatchie's here for your questions. Final segment of Keeping It Real coming up after we get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom Szymanski. You got it locked in at 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO. Catch, you got another opportunity to get your real estate questions answered right now for free. The price is right. I was just telling you a scenario because I've heard your ads on KFGO.
Mm-hmm.
Shows the power of advertising and KFGO. Of wanting to snoop on neighbors.
Right.
I tell you what, we moved into our new house, and just a couple months ago, a new house came up on the market, just block over. First thing we did, go online and check out that out. I wanted to know. So there's truth in it. But selling strategies, because I don't know that house has been sold yet. So walk people through some of the strategies they can keep in mind if they're thinking about selling.
Well, I think pricing is the thing we have to talk about. Everybody's afraid of underpricing. Nobody is really afraid of overpricing. But what happens with a house is if you overprice it, it becomes like day-old bread. It gets a little more stale, and the only way somebody's going to buy it is if you reduce the price. A couple of years ago, we had listed two homes on the same week within a block of each other in the Longfellow area up in North Fargo. There's the west side of Elm and the east side of Elm. This was on the west side of Elm, and so it's kind of smaller places compared to some of the big ones that are over there on the Longfellow area. We listed both homes that I thought were each worth about $240,000 in that market. One of those homes we listed for $235,000, and one we listed for $250,000. The house that we listed for $250,000 sat on the market for about 30 days, and then we did a price reduction down to $245,000. It sat for another 45 days, and after 75 days of being on the market, it ended up getting an offer for $238,000, $2,000 under what I thought it would sell for. A similar house, I mean, these are different layouts, different homes, of course, so it's not apples to apples, but the other one we listed at $235,000 that we thought would sell at $240,000. And that home, within a 3-day period, had multiple offers on it, and it sold for $245,000, $5,000 over where I thought it would sell for. With 2.5 less months on market, imagine if you're that home seller, you actually just made more money by pricing your house a little bit under. And so there's some massive strategy that goes into this, Tyler. If you're thinking about selling your house, you want to create demand and you want to create a bidding war. There is a house in Texas, and I forget the city in Texas, but a 2,000 square foot Rambler, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garage stalls. Beautiful, but nothing spectacular. Listed for $1.2 million. So if that tells you the inflation of the market right now of the prices is crazy. It got into a bidding war. That home sold for $2.5 million. 105% over the asking price. Now, that's not going to happen in Fargo. I mean, unless the seas part, and right, that's not going to happen in our neck of the woods. But what is going to happen is if you price it where there's demand, and you can actually get a chance to make a lot more. And it seems bass-ackwards, doesn't it? It seems like, why in the world would I go ahead and price my house a little bit under the market? I want to maximize my price. It's all about the demand that you can create. And 3 buyers fighting for it instead of 1 buyer settling for it creates a massive difference.
And going through that process recently with Hatch Realty, just the numbers that your team's able to provide, because the biggest question is, well, where do you even market it at? Where do you put it at? Because we know, this is what you think you could get, but you want to be within a ballpark, right? Mm-hmm. For exactly what you just described, and you guys helped us walk through, pinpoint it, and we sold for over our asking price as well.
In just a couple of days, it's why you get to give me a free commercial every time we talk about it.
I love it.
is we got you more than you thought. We made the pain a lot less of the struggle, and the market changes daily. There's a study that shows for sale by owner people, those that choose to sell on their own. And I don't blame you for saying, hey, this is a great time to sell on my own. Mm-hmm. There's a study that's done, and for sale by owner people are selling for something like 80 cents on the dollar of what somebody who lists traditionally is, because they end up leaving money on the table or they don't know how to negotiate in position.
Wow. That's why you got to hire them. Eric Hatch, keeping it real every second Wednesday, except for this month.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll be back next month, won't you?
I hope so, yeah.
Very good. I'll welcome you back. You have fun down in Louisville, all right?
Thanks, buddy.
All right, I'm going to let you go. Eric Hatch, again, he always takes your real estate questions. Jack Sunday's got the Drive Time News. Hi, Jack.
I think they'd correct you if they say it's Louisville. Louisville.
Louisville?
Almost Looville.
Learn from my mistake, Eric, as you get on out of here. So we got a
Sorry about that.
truncated Drive Time News coming up.
Yes, and we have all the news you need to get home. Too Tall Tom, we're going to have Paul Jurgens. We're going to have a traffic update. We have ag. We've got sports. And we have Ken Enixon from the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association.
Very good. That's coming up on the Drive Time News. Folks, that's it for me. I'm Tyler Axis. I'll check in on you tomorrow right here on KFGO.